Welcome to Uncovered. It's Wednesday. It's New Year's Day. More importantly, Happy New Year to you, Ron Filipkowski. I'm thrilled that you've taken time out of your day off to do this. Not really a day off for many people. We should remind people of that. But it's going to be
Have we had it? Have we had a week off? I don't think we've had a week off, ever.
No, weekends and weekdays, they all kind of merge into one for us. But that's okay. But genuinely, a Happy New Year to everybody who is joining us today. And I appreciate the fact that, you might have stuff to do and you've chosen to be here. And that is just wonderful. We decided that it was important to continue Uncovered on New Year's Day. So that's why we're here. The news, unfortunately, has been pretty tragic in the last 24 hours. And it would be remiss of us not to start by talking about the attack in New Orleans. They're now saying that there's an intelligence bulletin from Louisiana State Police that says several potential explosive devices were found in New Orleans' French Quarter following the vehicle attack earlier this morning. It was about 3:30 this morning. And surveillance footage had captured 3 men and a woman placing one of multiple improvised explosive devices. So that's a bit of a twist to this story. As we know, the assailant who drove the truck through the crowd, he was shot and killed by police at the time. This kind of brings up the thoughts of the Christmas market in Germany, which of course also saw something like this. This is really it's the most devastating way to make a point, a political point or otherwise, is to drive a large vehicle through a crowd. And really there's very little that anybody can do to stop that, because a vehicle driven in the wrong way is in itself a killing machine. And some of the imagery coming out of New Orleans has been truly tragic. And we send our condolences to the family and friends of anybody who's been affected by that. At the last count, I think it was 10 people had died, and a good more than a couple of hundred, I think, had been injured. The way that MAGA has responded to this story, though, Ron, has been pretty offensive and devastating in itself, because, of course, they jumped on this story before we knew any of the facts, and they started trying to claim that it was some kind of illegal immigrant that may have done this.
This follows a familiar pattern. I go through this every single time with school shootings, with incidents like this, the Buffalo mass shooting, the car accident at the Canadian border a couple of years ago, which they claimed was an Iranian terrorist. Every single incident that happens, the first reaction of the right-wing movement, MAGA, Trump, that whole world, is to want to blame it on a group that they don't like or that they targeted, whether it is migrants, which is usually their first choice, or any sort of minority group, or trans people. We see this time and time again. And so, unfortunately for me and my job covering them and debunking their lies, is I get to read all this stuff, which I just know as soon as I see the news about something, I just know what's coming. I can already write the tweets, I already know what's coming from them. And sure enough, and unfortunately, with some of these incidents, if we have right-wing media on our side somewhat, which sometimes happens to where like Fox and Newsmax tries to rebut the lies and put out some truth, that happens maybe 50% of the time. But in cases where they help instigate it, it's so much worse. And they reported a couple of years ago, a middle-aged guy who was coming back from a casino, and he was upset because he missed the Bruce Springsteen concert in Buffalo. So he went to a casino in Canada and came back and got in a car accident at the border checkpoint and died speeding. And, Fox reported that, John Roberts did, as an Iranian terrorist attack.
Yeah, I remember.
And I piled all over John Roberts, and he blocked me on Twitter, over that. So here we go again. It was Fox. Fox was the one who falsely reported this today. New Orleans incident, they said this vehicle had just crossed the border 2 days ago. It was a migrant. And of course, that caused Donald Trump to, jump out there and blame this on Joe Biden. And, you know, when you read that initial report, you're like, oh man, if that's true, I mean, this is bad, because even though, you know, this could happen with when anyone's president, you just know what they're going to do with something like that. Same thing they do with Lake and Riley and so many others. So, you know, but it turned out to be all lies. I mean, it turned out to be a man who was, you know, born and raised in Texas and was in the U.S. Army and all of that. Now, they also are reporting that other people may be involved. So there still could be more to the story. We'll have to wait and see. But the point is, right-wingers don't wait and see. They don't wait for the facts. They latch on to the first lie that they come across. Musk is as bad as anybody else, and they go with it.
And you can apply that logic to anything, including Pizzagate, Hunter Biden's laptop, Burisma, any of this stuff where they get a tiny morsel of a story and they'll just run with it, and they don't care whose life is affected or lives are affected in the meantime. I should probably start by reading Donald Trump, the disgraced former president and president-elect's posting on Truth Social. He said, "When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true. The crime rate in our country is at a level that nobody has ever seen before." That's not true. "Our hearts are with all of the innocent victims and their loved ones, including the brave officers of the New Orleans Police Department." I mean, you know, it's the lies. You know, violent crime has been coming down, as we know. And I wish the Democrats had made more of that during the election campaign and tried to kind of right that misinformation. But Trump using this in this way needs to be exposed for what it really is. It is propaganda and nothing more.
You know, right-wingers get mad at me when I say this, but they prove me right time and time again. And Adam Kinzinger and I had this conversation 2 years ago. They root for bad things to happen like this. They want things like, and I believe Trump wants, they salivate.
Yes.
They hope that there's tragedy, mass casualties, mass crimes. And then they hope in some way they can politicize it and blame it on Democrats and on Joe Biden. So they want these incidents to happen. And you know, they get upset. Oh no, of course we don't, but we're just giving the facts. You know, it's been proven time and time. You see the enthusiasm in their tweets and how excited they get, and on their video clips, and they get geeked up. This is like, these things are like mini Super Bowls for them. They get excited because they know that it can exploit their agenda, number one. Number two, a lot of these people are grifters who want their views and their clicks, and they're getting paid by that. And as I posted on social media this morning, when you post a sensational lie on right-wing social media, it blows up and goes crazy, and nobody fact checks you, and you get paid for that.
But it also never gets corrected. And Donald Trump knows that, right?
At most, they delete it and move on to the next thing.
But the point is that the propaganda has already been sowed.
That's right.
And so Trump will use this to push his immigration policies, despite the fact that it's a completely irrelevant event. There was a posting from a few people about this. Rob Schmidt he posted, I think he deleted this, didn't he? "Great start to the year. Democrat open border policies welcome a horror show in New Orleans. Don't expect an apology. They'll respond with a middle finger, working tirelessly to block immigration reform." This didn't last very long as a post, did it?
And again, you could see there, I tweeted it like a minute after he posted it. He's a Newsmax host.
Yeah.
He's like one of their main hosts who's been there for years. He's one of their main guys. So you would think, as like an anchor of a major news channel that specializes in cable news, that has millions and millions of people that watch it every day, you would have just a tiny bit of responsibility in your DNA where you would go, well, wait a minute. We don't really know everything here. We know very little. I mean, he posted that like literally like an hour after this story broke, when we knew almost nothing. That was an early post. And so he deleted it as soon as the report came out that this was an American citizen. But the reason why I screenshot these things is because, you know, I do this every time. It's the same drill. It's exhausting.
You know, it's going to be deleted.
I have to screenshot all these things not knowing if they're right or not.
Yeah.
But I go through the same exercise over and over again because more often than not, they're full of crap. And I like to catch them on these things because I want to destroy their credibility as much as I possibly can, as if it isn't destroyed already.
It would be nice if we can start this new year correcting the record about these channels being news channels, because they are not. Newsmax might have the word news in the title, but it is not a news channel. Fox is not a news channel. One America is not a news channel. These are propaganda networks. And, it's a problem because they can afford a shiny set and high-definition cameras and hosts who've worked on legacy news media. And so you put all of those components together and people are like, yeah, that's the news. It simply isn't. And with Trump re-entering the White House, their propaganda is only going to increase in the coming weeks, months, and years.
Yeah, for sure. It's weird. This is not the case with Newsmax, but like Fox has for decades, and including right now, they do hire like straight news reporters to cover things like Capitol Hill who are not right-wing ideologues. I think maybe even some of them are Democrats. I don't even know. But like they recognize that they do need to report some hard news in certain areas. And they do hire like decent people to do that.
But that's part of the trick,
but
though,
that's like 5% of their
but it's on purpose, because then you can't tell. It's a bit like you and I were having this conversation about how Republicans will drop a morsel of truth and mix it in with all of the lies. And I guess that's what Fox are doing by having a little bit of real coverage. It then gives the impression that everything else is legitimate as well.
Because look, I rely on Fox reporters that cover Capitol Hill because they're very good, because they get Republicans to talk to them when, CNN is not going to be able to do that, or regular, and they report it straight. But, those aren't the people that you see on TV, those, that's a whole different ball game, and so, yeah, it's just, they do report some fact. I mean, Newsmax doesn't even try to do that. They don't even bother. But you see where Fox does try to act sometimes like they're a straight news network, but they're clearly not. So yeah, it's so disheartening because it's like a whack-a-mole game. Once you prove that it's not a migrant, see, now they're on to the next conspiracy, which is like the FBI was incompetent. They're all black FBI agents in New Orleans. They don't know what they're doing. They're on to the next thing, right? So, and there'll be more. Probably when we finish the show, I pick up my phone. There'll be 3 new conspiracies about this.
The theme with the conspiracies, though, is racism. This is what we need to remember, and maybe again this year, we need to brand a lot of our coverage as covering their racism, because that's what this is. The xenophobia and the racism associated with them claiming that this person was not born in America, and then, as you quite rightly said, being racist towards the FBI and what skin pigmentation they might have because they're in New Orleans. I mean, it's just nuts. And at its heart is racism, and that is what binds these groups together.
So they were on this being a migrant, right? He's got an Arabic sounding name. I don't know what his, family origin or whatever is, where his parents came from. But so they were on that. And then the FBI brings out a black female spokesperson to address the press. I mean, it was like, it's like MAGA Palooza right now. We got an Arab person who may have come across the southern border, and we got a black female FBI spokesman. It's like a perfect storm for them to launch their racist conspiracies.
And the fact that they would respond in that way is just the stuff of decades ago. The rest of the world has moved on. We're not having these types of arguments in other civilized nations. And yet America, time and time again, as I see it, is just trying to wind the clock back to a time before the civil rights movement. Don Jr., Donald Trump's son, has weighed in on this as well. This is after it was announced, breaking news, federal law enforcement sources tell Fox the New Orleans attack suspect came through Eagle Pass, Texas 2 days ago. The suspect's citizenship status is not yet confirmed. So that's a Fox announcement. Of course, he reposts that and says, Biden's parting gift to America, migrant terrorists. He just doesn't care.
You see how the propaganda works, right? I mean, Fox puts out a false report.
Yeah.
Then it gets picked up by Junior, and then Junior passes it along to his dad, and then they put it out. And then, of course, everybody else picks up on it. Some people then later go back and delete the stuff, but Junior won't delete that. No. His dad won't delete his post. They'll leave that up there for months. And a lot of people on social media in the replies to my posts, where I'm catching them on all their lies, is like, they make a good point. People are like, look, no one's going to remember the corrections. They remember what they heard first. And Trump knows this. See, they don't really care if it's true or not. If they have a report based on from Fox or whoever, they can just say, well, I was just relying on the report. I just went with that, rather than like think I'm the president-elect. Maybe I need a little more than like an anonymous Fox report. But, that's who these people are.
But Fox posting it is the equivalent of Trump posting it, or of Don Jr. posting it. I mean, they're all on the same team. They're all in cahoots. I mean, we found this out with the, was it the Dominion voting system story? Do you remember? When with the discovery and the disclosure, they were literally posting things, and they had completely different opinions behind the scenes, but they were trying to get a story together.
Even when this was refuted by the first network, I think was CNN, who said, no, this is an American citizen. Even then, I did not say anything. I didn't post anything, and I'm just an editor of an independent news organization. But I'm like, no, I got two contradictory reports, one Fox, one CNN. I'm not going to then just jump on the bandwagon and go with the CNN thing that might fit a narrative that I want, which is to discredit these people. No, I waited. And you know how long I had to wait? I had to wait a whole nother hour, which for people on social media, that's torture that they would have to wait that long. But I waited a whole another hour until there was like 4 or 5 different news reports citing credible law enforcement sources saying this is not a migrant. Only then did I come out with it. Imagine if someone on the right actually did that, or our president-elect. Just wait for the facts another hour rather than.
Do you want to be first, or do you want to be correct?
First gets the clicks.
And tragically, as we know, it's clicks that win elections. Let's talk about the New Year's Eve party that was going on at Mar-a-Lago last night. I saw some video. Oh, by the way, my New Year's resolution was to delete Instagram. And this was part of.
You'll never do that.
No, I did it, but this is how I've got around. It's because of the reels.
You're gonna go through withdrawals.
Can just lose hours with those reels. So what I've done is
I've loved Instagram.
I loved one Alina Harbor's Instagram, but that's about it. This is a little personal tip. I've deleted it from my phone, right? Because that's the thing that I'm on the most. But I keep it on the iPad so that if I need to actually do some work on Instagram and do some work postings, I will need to sit down specifically and open the iPad to do it. Whereas the problem was having the phone on me all the time, even in the smallest room of the house, and just getting into that doom scroll. It's so unhealthy. So this is my advice to you. If you have another device that you can look at Instagram on, maybe that's healthier. It's one that doesn't fit in your pocket. and
my Instagram feed is like a carnival.
I'm sure it is.
Because it's all like people who hang out with Trump, like at his employees of Mar-a-Lago, his golf course, members of every like Trump mania cultist who like worships the ground he walks on. That's who I follow on Instagram, like exclusively. So it's just like a nonstop reel of like pictures and videos from people in Trump's orbit, and it's a horror show.
I was going to say, it sounds horrible.
It really is.
So I saw these clips of Trump and Melania, amazingly, kind of listening to YMCA, and he was doing the famous kind of Trump busting the grandpa moves. and she was looking awkward, and I was watching her kind of lip sync to YMCA, and I'm not sure she got the letters in the right order. And the whole thing just looked painful and awkward. This was their New Year's party at Mar-a-Lago, I presume. And then I saw Elon Musk sitting on a chair next to Trump, and he had his kid with him, and the whole thing just looked like a really awkward event that you would not want to go to, even if you had a free ticket.
Yeah, I mean, it's this big, like no A-listers there. Like it was all just the usual suspects, and the entertainment was terrible. You would think like this big, you just got elected president of the United States, and you got this big resort, and it's just like all the usual hangers-on and losers and grifters and everybody in his orbit who wants a job and wants an appointment or donors. You would think like he would have drawn a different group maybe of people for this, given the fact that he's about to take office, but he didn't. And and what proved that is like Laura Trump up there singing her, and not even singing a new song. Because I thought at least when I saw her go up on stage to sing, I thought, okay, she's going to unveil a new hit, right? I mean, because she's only put out 2 songs, and she wants to pursue a musical career supposedly, and she said she has a major career announcement that she's going to make in January. So I thought, this is it.
This should have been the launch.
She's going to launch her new album or new song or new tour, whatever. But it was just the same old Tom Petty song again that she released before. Very disappointing, and has not improved her vocal skills at all.
She's what we call a non-singer. You stand at the back because you're kind of the
worst kind, though.
Non-singer.
The worst, because some people who are non-singer like understand that they can't sing very well, but she actually thinks that she's got a lot of talent.
But isn't that a theme with a lot of these people, and certainly with that family, this Dunning-Kruger syndrome, where they're convinced that they have knowledge and skill and ability. And I suppose, wealth is corrupting, isn't it? And it can make you, and Musk certainly suffers from this too. And as I've said before on the show, if you go back and listen to some of the Musk interviews with a different mindset, the guy is just making it all up. He knows a little bit about quantum physics or mechanics, that he kind of sews in there. But the rest of it is just terrible, especially on social issues, cultural issues, or even international relations. The guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Well,
and Laura Trump has been on a media tour recently, taking credit for winning the election for Trump, and it's just like she did nothing. Like there's nothing Laura Trump did other than just like, I don't know, have the title and go on TV a lot and speak at some rallies. But it's just sort of funny to hear her, tout that as like the signature achievement of her life, when she really played no role other than to possess a title.
And she wasn't promoted as a result of that. She was demoted effectively.
Yeah, she's out at the RNC. And that's when she said she was going to make her big announcement. Because she said, well, I'm not, what I think is like, they didn't want her. They didn't need her at the RNC. And they just kind of like, okay, we're done. And they convinced Trump to do that. So to soften that blow, she said, in her announcement, she said, okay, I'm leaving the RNC because I'm launching this new career thing in January, which, a lot of people have speculated could be running for Senate in Florida, could be running for governor, or it could be, a new album. But I would have thought if it was something musical related, she would have debuted a little sneak preview of that last night, and we didn't get it. So maybe it's a modeling career.
Maybe she'll be Greece's entry to the Eurovision Song Contest through her connections. I mean,
how about this? Maybe she's going to spend some time with her kids. I mean, maybe that could be a crazy 2025 for her. So.
Stranger things have happened. Talking of which, let's just quickly mention this fire that took place in a Cybertruck outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas. Elon Musk has put out a statement, hasn't he? Just tell us what he said.
Well, he seems pretty upset about this because, that's from a local Las Vegas reporter. because obviously doesn't look good and it's going viral on social media everywhere. Right. And because, it's one of his trucks, and obviously he's had issues with the batteries catching on fire and other problems with his vehicles. And it doesn't help that this is right outside Trump Tower, which is, quite a metaphor for 2025 as we head into 2025 to see one of Musk's pride and joy Cybertrucks blowing up outside of Trump Tower in Las Vegas. He said, he seems to suggest that he thought it was some sort of terrorist attack. I don't know. We don't know anything about who the driver was. It looked to us at Midas, when we sort of studied all the videos and the photos of it from different angles, it looked like he had a bunch of fireworks in there, whoever owned this.
Well, I was going to say the fire doesn't look like it's coming from the battery, because the battery is at the bottom, and the flames would normally come from the bottom if it was a battery fire, like a combustion, but it's not the case. It looks like it's burning from inside the vehicle.
I mean, maybe the battery caught the fireworks on fire. It looked like it was loaded up with fireworks, maybe for New Year's Eve or something. I suppose we'll find this out. Look, it's not a terrorist attack. A terrorist is not going to buy a Cybertruck and blow it up in front of a building with nobody there. That's not what a terrorist is going to do. So, I think it's probably some dipshit who did something stupid, or it could be a problem with the car. Who knows? But, the photo and the metaphor and all of that is it's just perfect, especially coming out on New Year's Day.
Your favorite person, Laura Loomer, has posted a kind of cryptic message that weirdly makes quite a few good points regarding Elon Musk. Now, we've talked before about how there's no love lost between her and Musk. Didn't he ban her from Twitter recently? Or he took away her verification or something.
Took away everything from her. Her ability to get subscriptions, her verification, her engagement. Yeah. He absolutely wiped out her account. Let's
take a look at what she had to say.
And what we need to have a conversation about is, what is it going to mean for the future of our country, our national security, and the incoming Trump administration if we have a bunch of technocrats who are also essentially welfare queens because their companies are receiving government subsidies and they want to take over our defense industry? If you have a bunch of tech bros with billions of dollars and direct unfettered access to the vice president and the president of the United States, and then they are also, very cordial with our adversaries, as in China and Iran. We see that Elon Musk is having these meetings off the books with Iranian officials, with Chinese officials. What does that mean for us and the future of our constitutional republic?
Okay, hang on. Yeah, okay, hang on for a second. I want to go back because I missed JD on Dark Enlightenment. First off,
so this was on the show that Steve Bannon does on the America's Voice, which is his War Room. I think that was his podcast, which kind of got promoted to network, didn't it? Because Bannon is no fan of Musk either, and we've got a clip of that in a second, but just explain what's happening here, because this is effectively infighting. We look at the MAGA Republican Party and we see like Trump at the top and then some of these other characters, but actually it's more of a mush, isn't it? Like a mosh pit of egos.
The best way I can set this up is to say, heading into 2023, I had one number one mission, and that mission was to separate Ron DeSantis from the MAGA base, right? To get them to despise him and to cause long-term damage for him, which would last out years, irreparable damage between him and the base. And because I knew he was about to run against Trump, and I knew that people like Loomer and others were going to be very upset about that. And so I dove into the middle of that and spent all of 2023 sharing things about, and passing things back and forth, clips and everything else about Ron DeSantis with these people. And, I'm using their stuff, they're using my stuff. And that plan worked very, very well. Ron DeSantis is still badly damaged inside the MAGA movement, which may prevent him from ever securing the nomination for president. And I played a role in that. Not, I'm not the main person, but I helped. And so what I felt coming out of this election a month ago, 2 months ago, was the same thing about Elon Musk and the MAGA movement. And I felt like I've got to focus 2025 on doing with him and them what I did with DeSantis and them. And so I knew, so you have to identify what is there about each of these people that I think is going to aggravate MAGA. And so when I evaluated Elon Musk, I thought, the fact that he has half of his business in China, the fact that he's a globalist, he's a transhumanist, he gets tons of money from, he's an immigrant, he gets tons of money.
He's an immigrant is the big one, right?
From government subsidies, government programs. And so, he's not a Christian, he's not married. So there is a lot of stuff he's a drug user. There's a lot of stuff in Musk's background that many people in MAGA, like the evangelicals and stuff like that, are not going to like. Okay. And so, and the immigrant visas for the tech engineers is one of those things as well. He hires thousands of these people. And I knew that was an Achilles heel for him with MAGA. And so, I've been looking for these issues, and now, I'm pouring gasoline on this fire as much as I can, because when him and Vivek came out, because for a long time, for a month, like nothing was sticking to Musk in this issue. And I was taunting Bannon because I knew that everything I just mentioned are things that Steve Bannon doesn't like about Musk and has criticized him for in the past. But he was very quiet about Musk for a month after the election, because he said, like, look, we probably wouldn't have won without Musk's help. And I recognize that. And I'm going to reserve my judgment. I'm going to hold my fire on him because we owe him and, this and that. But I knew that probably wasn't going to last very long. So when this thing came on, I just started taunting Bannon, because, and look, Bannon has completely turned on Musk. He's spent his entire shows for the last 2 weeks hammering Musk day after day after day. And so I think that this is very important. I think we have to keep it up. You got to be relentless about it. It's not going to be a short-term thing. There's not going to be any one thing that's going to separate Musk from this movement. It's going to be 50 things, but we have to just keep doing this over and over and over again, because he doesn't believe what they believe. And what Laura just pointed out there is absolutely correct. She diagnosed this correctly. He wants, there's a lot of things that Musk wants that MAGA does not want.
So this is the breakup of the oligarchy, or the broligarchy, right? This is trying to break it up before it becomes of a size that is just too large and too dangerous. And we can see
calling him President Musk is part of that too.
Yeah. That's my favorite part of this is saying President Musk. I think I even wrote that in the description for today's show. Let's take a look at what Steve Bannon had to say about Elon Musk.
Oh, as a side note on all of this, I don't need, and I think as a citizen of this country, what we don't need is white guys from South Africa lecturing us. Like Peter Thiel and David Sachs and Elon Musk. We don't need white guys from South Africa lecturing us on the way things should be. Let me be blunt about that. I don't think that country's got the greatest track record on earth, okay? We've gone through a number of struggles ourselves, but we worked them through, okay? Not perfect, far from perfect, but I don't need guys from South Africa telling us the way the social order in this country is. And I particularly don't need a South African telling me that the people in the United States, the workforce, is retarded. Okay? Don't need that.
The racists turning on the racists. They're not racist enough for us. It's very interesting to see. I should also just say quickly as an aside is that Steve Bannon is the absolute doppelganger for my late father. And I find it really quite disconcerting when I see him speaking like that.
Well, he's Irish, so was your father Irish?
Well, he isn't, but yeah.
The beautiful thing about that is I have posted exactly what Steve Bannon said about Elon Musk. Yeah. Exactly. For years. literally said, like, I can't believe that a white guy, I posted this on Twitter multiple times. I can't believe a guy who grew up as a rich white guy in apartheid South Africa, at the time I was serving my country in the Marine Corps, while he was living as a rich white guy in apartheid South Africa, is now lecturing me on American democracy and free speech and this and that. It's like, I don't want to hear it from these guys. And so it's fun, it's funny to hear Steve Bannon say exactly what I've been saying for a long time. And, it's great. It's just, and that's a new line of attack from Steve, bringing up his South African heritage. Yeah. That's something completely different from the way he's gone at Musk in the past. So I find this very useful because, look, Steve's not on Twitter, but his show has a Twitter account. His daughter follows me. His producer follows me. His co-host follows me. He's reposted me many, many times. So I know that anything I put out, he sees. And so I'm helping. And obviously, Laura Loomer and I communicate on a fairly regular basis. I talk to her. And so, look, I'm able to get things to these people that they use because, look, when they say it, it's much more effective in causing problems inside their movement than me saying it. Me saying it doesn't mean anything. But when they say it, even if it comes from me, when they say it, it's very useful.
So if you were to predict how this is going to play out, because I'm of the opinion that, all this press about Elon and Trump are going to have a fallout and a split, I'm not convinced that will happen. I actually think that Trump knows how much he needs Elon, to the tune of $250 million and more. But I think Trump looks up to Musk, and even him changing his story on the H-1B visa is an example of, if Elon says it, then it must be true.
We may never see a clean divorce, where Trump one day says, get the hell away from me. I'm done with this guy.
Yeah.
You're an SOB.
Because he's living in a cottage on the Mar-a-Lago estate at the moment.
Right. So that might not happen, but
right.
I mean, it could happen like a year from now. I'm not saying that's going to happen anytime soon. It's possible it could happen down the line because Trump does get tired of people. Yes. People wear out their welcome with him quite easily. We've seen this many times. So it's possible. But I think, what I'm more looking for that could happen is the people around Trump are going to get tired of Musk and start bad-mouthing him. And they'll start bad-mouthing him to the press anonymously.
Leaking stuff.
Leaking things like that. Yeah. And eventually that's going to get to Trump, and Trump's going to be like, look, why don't you go run your SpaceX and your Tesla company? We're good now.
Because who is more famous?
Trump Musk put an expiration date on his service to the Trump administration of 2 years. He said he would only do this for 2 years. But
if he lasts that long.
Yeah.
There was a fallout also with Musk kind of melting down on Twitter. He posted, "The reason I'm in America, along with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong, is because of H-1B. Take a big step back and F yourself in the face. I will go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend." I mean, that use of language is terrifying. Not the F word, but this idea of going to war on a level. It reminds me of that time when Trump was threatening, was it North Korea he was threatening? Do you remember when he was at his cabinet table and he was putting out these threats? Or maybe it was Iran. And he was like, we're going to bomb the shit out of you or something. I was just like, when these people who have access to great power and wealth and weapons use this type of apocalyptic language, it is, I don't know about you, but I get pretty scared by this stuff.
He's using some of the syntax that Trump uses. And he's even starting to randomly capitalize words and use the exclamation point. Musk did not do that in the past. See, he's actually starting to sound a lot like Trump.
But that is a thing, isn't it? That when you want to befriend someone or you want to work with someone, by emulating them, you try to forge subconsciously your relationship closer together. So, because I was just thinking, who is more famous in the world? Because I don't care, nor do you, but they do. Who is more famous? Who carries more currency? Not in terms of riches, but just power. Is it Musk or is it Trump?
Hard to say. Yeah,
It's
hard to say.
it's pretty even Stevens,
Pretty
which is
even.
terrifying, right? Because it suggests that the person who's supposed to be the most powerful man in the world, the President of the United States, is now having to kind of get into an evens match with a tech billionaire.
And I think that he knows. I mean, see, because that's the other thing, is that Trump feels like he's still the boss. But I think if Trump ever gets the feeling that Musk thinks he's the boss and above Trump, then that could cause a problem. But the other side of the coin is this: even if they never divorce, if Trump supporters, his base, his MAGA voters that he needs to show up in midterms, by the way, if they feel like the old man has abandoned us and he's now with the tech bros, and many of them are starting to feel this way and more every day, then they might get very disillusioned at some point. They might just say, look, he promised to do all this stuff in the first term. He didn't do what we wanted him to do, but he gave us reasons why. The swamp thwarted him, the Democrats thwarted him, Paul Ryan, he blamed a lot. And so we thought, like, they think, okay, this is the time that things are really going to happen that we want to happen. And if it doesn't, I could see a lot of them blaming this relationship he has with Musk, and a lot of them just getting disillusioned and saying, we're out, we're checking out, we're done, as a lot of them did when they went to DeSantis in 2023. So, I certainly think that is possible. There's no bad reason not to continue to try and exacerbate these fights. And by the way, when Musk put that out, MAGA was furious about that last post, the F you in the face post. They were fuming. And then 24 hours later, Trump puts out a post and says he agrees with Musk.
I know.
And they were all just like,
so let's just talk about that for a second, because this was obviously all over H1B. Trump has explained where Trump's position was and how he changed his story, because this is what's upset MAGA. And then Elon having a meltdown and doubling down has only added fuel to the fire.
Trump posted in 2016 that H-1B visas were a scam. He was going to do away with the entire program and get rid of it. That these weren't the best and the brightest people coming in, as Musk is claiming now. This program was being exploited by corporations that were see the way the program is supposed to work is you have to say, I tried and I couldn't find a single American to fill this job, so I was forced to bring in this foreign worker. That's what you have to certify. And what Trump is saying is actually correct. What he said back in 2016, which is a lot of companies are using this as a BS loophole. They don't even try to hire an American. And sometimes they have an American who wants that job, but they would rather hire somebody from India or wherever, where they can work them like a slave, an indentured servant, and treat them like crap.
Yeah, it's just like modern slavery. And also there is a trade in these people as well. There is a lot of middlemen making profit out of H-1B visas.
These recruiters and stuff.
Yeah.
So, he said that quite clearly. He put it in writing in a post. I've posted it on social media multiple times. He said it again in 2020 that he was going to do away with it again. And now he says completely the opposite. And not only does he say completely the opposite because of Musk, and the only reason why he's saying the opposite is because of Musk. And MAGA knows this. MAGA knows he doesn't like the H-1B program. He never did. But Musk, he's saying it to please Musk, and that is it. And that's the part that aggravates him. So, but here's the other part. After they posted on social media his previous statements to refute Musk, Trump then comes out yesterday and says, I never said those things. I was never against H-1B. And they were all like, the old man hung us out to dry again.
And Midas Touch has been reporting on a lot of people who are having regrets about voting for Donald Trump and giving their support because of this and other things. And because, look, this is the same playbook as Trump on abortion. Remember how he kind of muddied the water on this story leading into the election? He didn't want people to really know where he stood.
Yeah, and people always say, that was another issue that made me really mad, that people didn't get why that was important, at the time, because it's another chink in the armor. Again, people were like, oh, pro-lifers are not going to leave Trump over because he's not for a federal anti-abortion law. And I said, that's not the point. People aren't able to think strategically. So few, it's so aggravating. And I'm talking about people in politics. They don't think long term. They think today. Oh, no, is that going to make MAGA leave Trump today? No, it's not. But when you put 50 of these things and stack them on top of each other, eventually some of them get disillusioned. And you know what they do? They stay home. They don't show up and vote in midterm elections, as many of them did not do in 2022 and 2018. And so this is the point, is that every time we get one of these issues where Trump takes a position that goes against his base, we must exploit it and we must pour gasoline on that fire.
He did the same with vaccines, I seem to remember, right?
Vaccines.
Same thing.
I was on all this stuff.
Yep.
On point.
Yep.
We have, and again, I'm blowing up the fact that, MAGA is criticizing him over every time Trump praised vaccines or took credit for warp speed.
He was booed.
I would put that out.
Because
I would put that out knowing it pissed off his own people. But people on the left would be like, oh, he really didn't do warp speed. He really shouldn't get credit for that. And I'm like, this is not the point.
Yeah.
The point is, this is an issue that divides Republicans. We need to exploit this. But my gosh, there are so few Democrats who get this.
It's you can't think in a binary way about this stuff. There is the narrative has a subplot. There are twists. There are turns. It's not a kind of classic story arc with this guy. And it's essential that we think critically, but we also do our due diligence. You can't just repeat the first thing that you see. There's always an ulterior motive. There's always a secondary story, and there's always a twist. And unfortunately, that's what keeps people interested in Trump, is that nothing is ever straightforward.
It's funny. When I first started, doing that back with DeSantis in the primary, I got a lot of criticism, from people on the left. Like, why are you helping these people? Why are you helping the Trump people to go after DeSantis? Why are you doing that? It's like, you have to think strategically, because these people can take out DeSantis and we can't. That's the point.
And all you do is you hold up a mirror, Ron. That is your great skill, is you hold up a mirror to their faces to show them things that they might not have realized. And I think that is the thing that the mainstream and corporate media doesn't know how to do.
And they might not get upset about it right away, but they'll stew on it. And then they'll see something from somebody else. And then a week later, they're posting that they're pissed off. And again, you might say, well, they're all a cult. They'll all fall in line eventually. That's true with like half of them.
Yeah.
But the other half, I'm not saying that they're going to come out and say, I'm switching parties now. I've said this before, if we can just get them to stay home, because they have no loyalty to the Republican Party. And we have to move forward now. And we have to win midterms and we have to win 2028. And Trump will not be on the ballot in either of those races, theoretically.
Yeah. And the MAGA Republican Party without Trump as a figurehead is it's a very, very different political landscape.
Because we've already seen so many of these people do not show up when he's not on the ballot.
Yeah.
They don't show up for Kerry Lake. They don't show up for these midterms.
Because he's the cult leader.
3 times already.
Yeah. It's the cult leader or bust.
That's it.
Talk to me about this meeting that Trump had with Mayor Bowser. I don't know much about this, and I'm kind of very interested.
I mean, they just had an in-person meeting yesterday, right?
Okay.
And so she put out a very positive statement about the meeting, how well it went. And I was very taken aback because I have listened to everything that Trump has said about DC. And I've listened to what he said he plans to do. He said DC is a hellhole, it's a shithole, it's a third world country, it's the worst city in the world. It's violent, it's trashy, it's horrible. when he's never been in any of these neighborhoods in DC. I've been in every neighborhood in DC. He has been in no neighborhoods in DC. He doesn't, his limo to the airport is all he's seen.
He sees it at like 45 miles an hour.
Right. So, he said that he is going to seize DC and disband the District of Columbia, have a federal takeover, disband the office of the mayor, disband the Capitol Police, federalize everything, appoint his own people to run the city. And that's what he is. And he said he's going to move a minimum of 100,000 jobs out of DC, government jobs, and put them in different places. He pledged to put the FBI headquarters somewhere else. He pledged to put the agriculture department in Iowa. So he's pledged to do these things. He's basically pledged to take DC as we know it apart and take it away from Democratic leadership. And so to read this post from Muriel Bowser talking about what a wonderful, productive meeting she had with Trump, I know a lot of people have said, well, she's saying what she has to say. She's playing the game she has to play, and Trump likes to be flattered. So either one of two things is happening here. Either she's naive, like so many other Democrats are dealing with this guy, or she is playing that game where she's trying to appease him and flatter him and get him to back off some of the things he said,
as she knows how to play him, basically,
as he's done so many times before on so many things. So one of two things is about to happen with this relationship. Trump is going to fulfill his campaign promises to MAGA and go to war with her, and she's going to look pretty foolish for making that statement, or he's going to back down on all of it, break all of his promises, because they're friends now. All of a sudden, they have an understanding, which is bizarre to me that is even possible, because if that does happen, of course, I am going to be feeding MAGA again with all the things he promised that he was going to do with DC that he broke.
And that just goes on the list with H-1B, with the vaccines, with abortion. Yeah, because this is who Trump is. And this is the definition of a populist. And populism is a very hard thing to define because it means different things in different countries to different people. And he really embodies this when he only sticks to the script depending on who he's playing to. He'll change his story depending on who the audience is, and that could be an audience of 50,000 or an audience of 1. And he goes either where the money is or a way that enables other people to do the work so that he can go play golf.
So I thought about who called this meeting? Did she call it? But then I thought it's probably over the inauguration, right?
Yeah.
He's got to have some communication with her about security and all of that, and the route. And so I'm thinking that was probably the reason why they had the conversation. I hope it wasn't a situation like Trudeau where, she called him and
comes running
and came running. I hope that's not the case. I think it was probably it probably had to start it out with discussing inauguration plans and security and all of that. And maybe it devolved into a broader conversation about DC itself. But yeah, I'd be very shocked if the two of them end up in some sort of Eric Adams-like partnership.
Right.
Because
quid pro quo.
Adams wants a pardon. Muriel, I don't know what she would want from Trump.
Maybe she just wants her staff to be left alone to do their jobs. Could be as simple as that.
If a one meeting where she plays nice with him works to accomplish that, then she's a hero.
Well, that's how easy he is to manipulate. And, just ask Vladimir Putin. The U.S. attorney in D.C. has resigned. Just set this up for us before I play the Marjorie Taylor Greene clip.
So we've all heard about these hit lists that the Trump people have, Kash Patel, all these other people, of people that they want to go after in, whether it's Fauci or, whoever, Liz Cheney. We've seen all the lists. We've heard all the names.
Mark Milley, I think, is on there as well.
Milley, sure.
Yeah.
And Matthew Graves is very high on the list because Matthew Graves is the guy whose office prosecuted 95% of the J6ers, put them all in prison and prosecuted them very vigorously. And people forget, they asked for harsher sentences than they got in almost every case. More than 50% of the time, the judges handed down lesser sentences than Matthew Graves asked for.
Yeah.
And so he is very much a target of them. And so when he resigned, their initial reaction was, you can run, but you can't hide. We're coming after you. And the idea that like a federal prosecutor who did his job the right way and ethically, no judge has complained about him. Even Trump appointed judges, not one has complained about the job that his office did in any of these prosecutions. He hasn't been cited for any ethical violations.
And most of these people pleaded guilty. I mean, that's the other thing.
The convictions have not been overturned on appeal.
Right.
So it's like, what's the issue here? But I think that he is a guy that we have not heard the last about. I think that if there is a Retribution tour, which I believe there will be, he's going to be one of the top 5 names that they're going to go after.
Okay, well, let's take a look at how Marjorie Taylor Greene is setting this up.
And I just want you to know, this man, if he resigned today, this is not the end for him. Because we are about to take over and we're going to be in charge. And I think he should pay for what he has done to these people.
Yeah, well, we shall see. She seems to be getting a kind of smaller and smaller role in the landscape, doesn't she? She's not happy about it.
I mean, there she is with her boyfriend, right? I mean, she's not even on the screen by herself.
Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right. She has a lot less, everything unraveled for her when Kevin McCarthy got voted out as speaker, and she put all her eggs in that basket, got kicked out of the Freedom Caucus because she backed McCarthy. And when he lost the speakership, she is a very diminished person. Trump still likes her, but that's as far as it goes. So I think that she's going to run for something. She's going to run for governor of Georgia or Senate, I think. To try and get back in the spotlight, because what she's doing now is she's being completely ignored and overshadowed by so many other people.
Yeah, she must.
And she's one that the Musk wedge, she's one that could work with. I could see her not liking Musk in the future, but her arch enemy is Laura Loomer. So the fact that Laura Loomer is like one of the point people in the anti-Musk camp, Marge probably doesn't like that.
Trump has just endorsed the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, for his next term. And I guess that was probably going to happen. I see Mike Johnson as a useful idiot for Donald Trump. If there was someone more idiotic than Donald Trump, let it be him. But let's take a look at this clip of Tim Burchett praising Mike Johnson and the reasons why he thinks that he is a quality candidate. Fascinating.
Mike's been a good friend to me, and there's nobody more honest that I've ever dealt with in Washington. I mean, he is a fine Christian man. He's not a religious man. He's a Christian man, and he doesn't cheat on his wife. And I find that very appealing in Washington, D.C.
That's good. So let's...
even the reporter was like, what? He's not a religious man, Ron, but he is a Christian man.
Yeah, like what's Burchett saying? Like, well, he's pretty much the only one who hasn't cheated on his wife, so that's my guy. No, I mean, Burchett doesn't like Johnson, but, he said that after Trump came out and endorsed him. This has been very interesting to watch play out since the CR. He was dead man walking coming out of that. It was 25 to 30, many media outlets reported this, 25 to 30 Republicans who are ready. If the vote would have happened the day after the CR, would have voted against Johnson, and Johnson would have been toast, right? So what's happened is, a lot of them have kind of been talked back into the fold and all off the ledge. But, the problem is if they get only 3 defectors, if they get only 3 Republicans to vote against Johnson, he could be out. And so, because that's what their majority is right now. So it's a big problem. I think it's up to 4 though, because John Jackson in North Carolina just resigned, Democrat, because he just got elected Attorney General of North Carolina. So maybe it's 4 votes now, and the vote is on Friday. So here's the deal: if Trump had stayed out of this and just said nothing, And I kind of felt like that might be what he was going to do. Then Mike Johnson would have lost.
Yeah.
So obviously if Trump went against him, he's toast. But if Trump just stayed quiet, Johnson was done. And so the reporting now is that the latest reporting is the plan was for Trump was going to wait until tomorrow. He's going to wait until Thursday, the day before, to make his big splash, because he wants to be able to take the credit and all that. He wants to be able to say he's only speaker because of me. So he was going to wait until the day before and make his big announcement. I'm supporting Mike Johnson. But Johnson went to him a week ago and said, that will be too late. You've got to bail me out right now. I'm hemorrhaging these people. They're turning against me. We have to turn the tide now or everything is lost. And so Trump came out earlier than he wanted to and endorsed him, which caused many of the Johnson critics to back down, right? So the question is there 4 or 5 still willing to go against Trump? This is what we don't know. If I had to bet right now, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that Johnson's going to win. But I think what a lot of them are saying is like, if he pulls this out, we hold our nose and we back him because that's what Trump wants. The next thing he does that pisses us off, he's gone. We're going to do a motion to vacate. But, would they dare do that when Trump is in the White House? I don't know. So
but to me, this is a template for the Senate confirmations. This to me is, I'm of the opinion that the Republicans are going to fall in line with Donald Trump's wishes for all of these nut jobs that he has proposed for these senior positions. I just feel that a cult, we need to stop thinking of it as a political party. It really isn't. It is a cult of personality, a cult of emotional and professional blackmail. There is so much at stake there. And I just think that Trump is, now that he's won, he has got a lot of fire in his belly, and he's just going to say, do this, do that, and people will fall in line.
Yeah, and they're letting everybody know how painful it will be if you go against him as a Republican elected official.
Right. But
they're
even when Trump's talking crap, like the stuff about Greenland and Panama, people are lining up to kind of support his argument. We've got this clip of his former national security advisor on the Greenland story. Let's have a quick look.
It's there.
Well, the latest is Greenland is a highway from the Arctic all the way to North America to the United States. It's strategically very important to the Arctic, which is going to be the critical battleground of the future, because as the climate gets warmer, the Arctic is going to be a pathway that maybe it cuts down on the usage of the Panama Canal. And the Russians and Chinese are all over the Arctic. Now,
can't believe he used climate change as an argument there. Kind of unusual. But again, this is just Trump's foot soldiers falling in line to cover his crazy requests.
Yeah, right. I thought climate change was a hoax.
Right.
Trump said this is not real.
It's Democrat stuff.
Robert O'Brien is using that as the justification to invade Greenland because someday it's going to be green, right? It might not be so cold. So it might be prime real estate. But so what you have here is, you have Robert O'Brien, who was very senior in the last administration. He was Trump's national security advisor, big time spot. And he was rumored to be either Secretary of State, CIA director. He was a name that came up a lot when people were talking about who was going to be high up in the new Trump administration. Even Secretary of Defense was tossed around, or Secretary of State. And he didn't get any of those jobs. And so, he's somebody who's still out there waiting for the call, waiting for a job like so many other Trump loyalists from term one.
So he's just auditioning on television.
So he's like trying to get Trump's attention here by like, I'm the only crazy person, who is a senior official in the last administration who's willing to go on TV and back this insane notion of the U.S. taking over Greenland by military force from our NATO ally, Denmark. It's a violation of the NATO charter to do this. And so, to entertain this foolishness is so silly. It should just be laughed at. But, the other part is you see these Fox hosts and these Newsmax hosts that are like, asking these questions with a straight face. I mean, they have to know that this is nonsense. I almost watch their face when they're talking about this Greenland stuff. They almost have a little smile on their face, like,
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm having this discussion.
That's kind of the that's the overarching feeling with anything that connected to Donald Trump. It's like, really? Okay, here we go. This is the definition of a cult.
Because
they have to entertain it. Listen, we have to finish in a minute, but I want to end on this story from the Washington Post about Joe Biden, his opinion on the appointment of Merrick Garland. Let me read this little line here. The Washington Post reporting that Joe Biden now admits that he should have chosen someone other than Merrick Garland for Attorney General because he simply wasn't the man for the moment and was far too slow to appoint Special Counsel Jack Smith, all but ensuring that Trump would not be held accountable for his crimes before the election. He also noted that Garland wasted no time appointing a special counsel to aggressively prosecute Hunter Biden. This is a frustrating bone of contention, isn't it? Because we all felt it, and we all put our trust in Merrick Garland being a good person on the right side of history, doing the right thing with an awful lot of experience. And that was all bullshit. It seemed that even Joe Biden was feeling what we were feeling all along.
Yeah, you don't know who to believe on this stuff, about all this Monday morning quarterbacking. But yeah, I mean, what the story reported was that he wanted to appoint Doug Jones. He wanted to appoint the former Alabama senator who was a civil rights prosecutor way back in the day,
Right.
And so that's who he wanted to appoint, who probably would have been very, very aggressive, who was politically savvy, who had been in the Senate, all that kind of stuff, right? And that's who he wanted. And he was talked out of it by Ron Klain, his chief of staff, who felt like, what Biden wanted, according to the report, is somebody who had some political savvy to him and who had been in Congress or the Senate, somebody who knew the players and stuff like that, because he felt like that's what was necessary, was sort of a hybrid prosecutor politician was needed.
And we should remember that Merrick Garland missed the opportunity to be on the Supreme Court because
which
Mitch
is where
McConnell blocked that
belonged
the last time. And so there was
that
maybe
was the perfect job for him.
Right. So maybe there was a sense of onus that maybe he didn't get that. So maybe he should have the next best job.
He got left holding the bag and all that. Right.
Right.
So I think that was part of it. But then you have Ron Klain, who had the exact opposite take on it, which he felt like he wanted somebody completely not connected to politics whatsoever. So it was perfect to take a judge, who's very vanilla, who's very straight arrow, no skeletons, not non-political, that he felt like after coming out of 4 years of the Trump Justice Department, which had politicized DOJ and federal law enforcement, that we needed to go in the opposite direction to restore the credibility of the Department of Justice. Now, that's admirable. I get it. I mean, I can understand that argument,
but he picks the wrong period of history to do that.
Yeah, you hit it. Yeah, you said it. Man. Took the words right out of my mouth.
It reminds me a little bit of, James Comey causing Hillary Clinton's loss, arguably.
Yeah.
With his speech just before the election about the email server. And so, a lot of us looked at James Comey as somebody who also was a career person who decided to take a political matter into his own hands and just did not see, was completely blind to the timing because he was institutionalized at the FBI. And it's the same with Merrick Garland. This is a guy who is institutionalized and he doesn't quite understand the way that this new movement, this new political movement, this lawless movement, MAGA Republicans, they care nothing for protocol, they care nothing for setting a good example, they disrespect the Constitution and anything that goes with it. It's lawless. And yet he's trying to, and Biden's done this a little bit, trying to just do the right thing. Well, I'm sorry, the days of doing the right thing when you have the rise of a fascist authoritarian on the horizon, you have to you have to be a little smarter than that.
You know, when they always talk about their Retribution tour and who they're going to go after and who they're going to make pay, you know, one person that I never hear them bring up, Merrick Garland.
Right.
You know,
and I wonder
they don't
why.
seem like they're all and it seems like if he was really doing his job well, he would be number one on that list.
Yeah.
But he's not. You know, they don't have a huge problem with the job that he did.
Same with Christopher Wray as the FBI director. You know, I personally believe that history will look back and we will see that the relationship between Wray, who spoke at the Federalist Society, I mean, these people are all connected. They all have a kind of historical, conservative views. And I as unbiased as we would like these people to be, I think subconsciously they're just fighting their good fight.
Yeah.
We'll never know, Ron. We'll probably never know.
We'll never know. And I don't know, you know, I don't know if what Biden says is correct, that he really didn't want Garland, but got talked into it. I don't know about that part of the story.
Yeah.
I certainly believe that Doug Jones's name was being tossed around and he would have been a better choice. But again, you know, it's easy for these guys now after the fact to say what should have happened, you know?
Yeah. I don't want us to end without mentioning the late Jimmy Carter, who we lost last week at the age of 100. Am I right in saying that the flags will all be flown at half staff for Trump's inauguration? Because if that's the case, I'm down with that.
I don't know. I didn't hear that part of it.
Yeah,
I know.
I think it's happening.
The state funeral is what, the 9th, I think, of January.
Right, but the flags have to remain, I think, for a month or something.
I didn't hear that part of it. That's interesting. I can see Trump trying to reverse that.
We're all in mourning for the loss of a great president, Carter, and for the fact that the incoming regime is a dictatorship. That's why those flags are jointly being flown in that way. Remarkable
what a contrast
timing
between the character of Jimmy Carter versus Donald Trump.
I know. Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, we have to finish, but I want to wish you a very happy new year. And I am very thrilled for our friendship and this beautiful relationship. And I look forward to having these meetings with you throughout 2025 and beyond. And
should be a wild ride.
We've got there's a lot to talk about. We'll never run out of things to say. Exactly. Okay, listen, Happy New Year, everybody. If you want to download the audio podcast, you can do that later tonight, wherever you get your podcasts. You want to watch again, rewind, and do that as soon as we finish. And don't forget to comment down below and share the show too. And we'll come back next Wednesday with another Uncovered. Happy New Year, Ron.
Happy New Year.